Howdy, friends. Welcome to another episode, whatever number we're on, of Rendezvous with Misha Fain, aka Mark McGlue. Sorry, Jamie McGlue. Yeah. Um, so today we're going to talk about honesty. Here's a little song about honesty. Tell me the truth. Are you telling me the truth? Don't lie to me, 'cause I'm already lying to you. How could it be that we could be free if I lie to you and you tell the truth to me? I want what you have, but you'll get what I give you. And if we're really bad, we'll wanna be selfish properly. Gotta tell the truth, or else you're gonna suffer. And in the end, it's only youth that doesn't know what's up above in the world where everything is what it is. Okay. Here's another song. This song is called "Au Pair, How Sweet Thou Art." Oh, pair, how sweet you are. Now, I considered making this podcast about the sweetness of pears, but I thought honesty is probably a little bit more important. Um, so, yeah, I mean, maybe this is kind of obvious. I think to people who tell the truth, it's kind of obvious why honesty is important. Um, but for those of us who are, what's the word I'm looking for? Redemptionless or irredeemable liars, slash, I think the majority of us who, aren't always truthful, then, I think it's something, even though it's very simple, it's very important to go over it. It's like brushing your teeth or exercise or showers or something like that. Just because it's simple doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing it constantly. So there's things which you can forget. So it's like and honesty. So I want to talk about just briefly, like the importance of being honest. Like, why does that actually make sense? Why is that what we should be doing in general? But then also just how honesty is actually the easiest. I think my subconscious was referring to this in the song just then, that it's actually just the easiest way to live, I think, is, um, you know, um, yeah, just from a pure self-interest standpoint, telling the truth, you don't have to keep track of all these lies and then, you know, so that simplifies things. Maybe you think you can keep track of all the lies and so it's fine, but I would say, yeah, it's not as easy as just telling the truth. And what you think you're getting, the benefit you think you're getting, you're actually not getting, which gets us into the more spiritual element of it, where you, you are what you eat. And if you're constantly eating the lies that you're spewing out into the world, or you're breathing it in, I don't think you can go through your life like lying without kind of becoming a lie yourself. And then also just more generally, honesty, like about communication with the world, people as well, just expressing our needs and wants, and being ourselves, and the importance of that. But then also, yeah, like say me on this podcast, like what do I talk about, or are the things I will be, afraid to talk about, because we'll get into, the dynamics of that. But I think it's pretty interesting, and I think it's a big problem that a lot of people have, whether or not you're like talking on the internet or you're, it's just like you and your colleagues or your family or interact. Yeah, but especially for public um, communication, I think there's a big problem where people of honesty, where you know, I guess there's two sides to that. Authority has a big honesty problem, and then also counter authority figures, or I guess figures who find themselves on the opposing side to an issue, of an issue to authority. There's problems with honesty. So that's all very interesting. So let's get into it. First of all, I will be honest. I need water. So first off, why is it important to be honest? Like, just tell the truth at all from a kind of moral standpoint. I think, it's a type of control. You're restricting other people's freedom. Fraud is where it's a crime, it's criminal activity where you're making money by deceiving people. So that's criminal, right? Bending the truth can be a criminal thing. And when you're deceiving people in general, even if you're not making money, even if it's like, you're trying to get a girlfriend, or you're trying to get a promotion, or you're trying to get something, and trying to avoid something. And it might be like, I want to get that car, or I want to get that, girl, or I want to get that image that people will have. I want to have that reputation in others' eyes or whatever. It could be something like that, or it could be that I want, and I want to avoid the opposite. Or it could be that I want to avoid other people getting these things, Could be like competing with others by lying, by bending the truth. So, we all have our sphere of freedom, and it's fine to we should be like desire. The last episode I was just saying, we should all be manifesting our dreams. Like, what else are we here for? What do you want? Follow what you want. However, the caveat is it's without restricting unreasonably the sphere of freedom that others have to follow their desires. So there's these overlaps of the Venn diagram, which is where you have to think, okay, who really gets, whose will reign supreme in this particular thing. The child doesn't want to go to bed. The parent wants them to go to bed. Well, the parent, gets to decide because you're really young. When you're 18, okay, no longer. It flips, Someone wants to smoke cigarettes in the street. Other people are like, hey, I've got a baby here. I don't want you smoking cigarettes. Who should have the right? Well, that one's pretty complicated. So maybe society and the courts need to kind of help to try to negotiate these things. And maybe it won't be perfect, but in general, the system, it makes sense as a whole system. And there's always going to be ambiguity in some minority of cases. So I think honesty, if we don't, if we don't live according to honesty, society will fall apart, right? Like Immanuel Kant, he had this philosopher, German dude. He was saying just the other day, a few hundred years ago, like the the universal, his a categorical imperative. It's this thing, basically saying you must live according to, your behavior should be such that it could be universalized as a general maxim. So whatever you're doing, if everybody did it, would society be able to function? Would harmony be possible? If it's like, stealing from people, well, actually, no, that's going to screw up everything. Or lying also, if we all lie, we can't run businesses, we can't make plans. We need to be able to rely on each other. And communication and intelligence seemingly has been spurred on through evolution to evolve because of human beings were not the strongest or fastest animals, but we are best able to model the environment and kind of understand the environment, and then apply leverage onto the environment, transforming this, transforming that, transforming ourselves, even the internal environment, in order, through communication, through talking and working in groups. Competition, yeah, sure, but mostly cooperation. That's what's been the key to humans evolving. And we can share information in groups. We can work in teams, and we can kill one lion on one human. The human's in trouble. One lion on like 5 humans, suddenly like that lion's in big trouble. So yeah. So I mean that's a basic thing. Society can't function if everyone's lying. The counter could be that like, well, yes, if everyone if everyone lied, society couldn't function. But if it got to the point where so many people were lying, but given that we know most people aren't going to do that, most people are going to go, oh, if everyone did that, we'd all be screwed, so we can't do it. Given that that's also a fact, then the counter argument could be that like, oh, it's fine, a minority of people lying, that is generalizable, having a minority of people lying. And so, then that's fine. That would be the argument. It's kind of a stupid argument, I think, like ultimately, but fair enough. Like, you could say there's always going to be a dark side to nature and to all things, yin and yang, and so I want to be the kind of person who lies, and that's the kind of journey I'm on. Fair enough, if that's your journey. I do think that's ultimately an illusion. We'll get to that in talking about spirituality. So for your own self-interest, I think stay tuned. But basically, if we're not honest with each other, we can't. The society cannot function. Now, also, just from a pure selfishness standpoint, like not having to keep track of all these lies, being able to just tell people openly what you think and not need to go, what did I tell them last time? Or are they going to talk to someone else? Can I tell them this thing? Can I make that joke to them? Or are they going to then pick up on that detail and go talk to someone else? There's all this wasted energy you have to put in to maintaining this system of deception. Now you might say, yeah, it's not wasted. That there's a bunch of energy I put into it, but then I get more back out of controlling my environment. Again, fair enough, but I think it's a pretty dark, sad energy, and definitely you can't connect to as deep a happiness. Like the true happiness, it's not ignorance as bliss. It's like bliss is actually only accessible via truth, because bliss is an aspect of truth, of understanding who you are, who I am, who we all are, that we are like life, oneness. There's no boundaries between us, actually. And that is like, what does that even mean? Turn off your mind and you'll find out. It's not, I couldn't put it into words. It's literally beyond words. But it's the simplest thing there is. It's the most obvious thing. It's like the water to the fish. What do fish know of the waters in which they swim? Einstein said something like that. Or what's that speech? This is water. Great speech, actually. Look up This Is Water online. Really good. But some graduation speech thing. Can't remember the guy's name. Something Wallace, maybe. Anyway, like it's so obvious to us. It's so ever present, our consciousness, that we miss it. Just like a fish wouldn't know. Like what's water? What do you mean? Because it's always there. So, but nonetheless, that's what I mean by saying the truth. And so ignorance can get you to extreme levels of comfort, sure, but not to bliss. So if you really want to be actually making the most of this opportunity on the earth, then lying is actually, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, 100%. But, nonetheless, I thought it was interesting just to be thorough, / a little OCD, let's be honest. I'd go into the details, the counter arguments you could make on that lower level for why lying might be reasonable or at least understandable. Anyway, but yeah, I think if you're always lying, like if you're trying to manipulate people and control people, you might feel like, oh, how smart am I? But apart from, as we'll get to, the fact that that's not really you, that's like a parasite in your mind, this false self, you could call it the ego or the lower self. But basically, you've got this idea of who you are, this self-image. But you're not an image in your mind. You're not like a picture you see. Have you ever had the experience where you look in the mirror and you go, oh yeah, that's me. Huh. Kind of forgot what I looked like. It's like, well, actually, that's not you. You're seeing your vessel. Think about, like, close your eyes and what's the feeling of being me? Is that really what you see in the mirror? Maybe if you look into your eyes, you might see it in your eyes. In fact, you can, definitely see it in your eyes. But that even if it's a reflection of you and an inspiration of you or something, some sort of perhaps even a creation of you, it's definitely an experience, a very intimate experience we have, like this self we can see in the mirror. But even though you're never seeing your real face, you're seeing a photograph or a reflection in the mirror, you're never seeing your own face, except like I can see a bit of my nose, But yeah, so your true self is something separate. But back to the point here, or the other point, you might think you're outsmarting everyone, but if you're constantly like saying things to lie to other people, your mind is practicing kind of espionage and deception, and then how do you know your mind isn't going to do that to you? Especially when you realize you are not your mind. And it is going to do that, and you're training that. And if you are to fool other people, you're saying, oh yeah, I love sailing. Let's go sailing. But it's actually you're trying to cozy up to someone to get some deal or steal from them, or there's a friend who you actually hate, but you pretend to like him for whatever reason. All these things, you're acting out that role, you're acting out that experience. By the way, maybe I'll just cut to the chase and say this also applies not just for trying to manipulate others, but also if for your own comfort, your own emotional comfort and anxiety, you're playing roles to try to please people. So that's another form of lying, where you're going, yeah, everything's fine, smiley, ha, ha, ha. But actually inside, I'm really anxious. I used to do that many times, unfortunately, or fortunately, maybe I learned these lessons. But, like it's a pretty rough experience. A lot of shame attached to the inability to trust even, your friends or enough. And it's kind of this subconscious knee-jerk reptilian brain instinct thing to kind of like play roles or wear masks to try to please people, or just try to make yourself look comfortable so people don't get weirded out or something. There's all these weird, layers to it, nooks and crannies and alcoves, but that is another, more or less the dynamic's the same to intentionally lying in order to control people. And in a way, you are trying to control people. You're trying to prevent them seeing your awkward true self or whatever in that moment, and ironically, if you would just let down the mask, then there might be a moment, an awkward moment or something, but then that energy would explode and go somewhere. And in its wake, there would be a wakefulness, And, that's how you need to kind of let these things come out and then go, And, if you stop trying to protect yourself, that's when your real strength appears. Vulnerability is strength, letting the walls down to be your true self. Or whatever manifestation, even if it's your lower self, like, oh, I'm feeling afraid, or I'm feeling, awkward, or I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling, sad or bored, whatever. If you're like, I don't want to share that, and you might say, that's not my higher self. That's just like this kind of patterns, these automatic patterns coming through me. I don't want to share that. There's a time and place for it. There's a time, I guess, where it's wise to try to keep that out of the way, maybe for the benefit of others, but you need to be careful, not to go too far with that and lose yourself so that it becomes a constant habit. But occasionally that can be wise, and useful. Like there's kids around, or like you know, if I'm going to teach an English class and I'm in a bad mood, I just let the bad mood disappears briefly because I have a job to do. I'm here to help these people. So that bad mood doesn't exist, you know. I just like, you know, click, it's gone, you know, flick a switch. And then after, you know, you can get back to dealing with it later or whatever. But so the time and place for that. But in general, I think, you know, we should be honest, and the benefit then people can interact with that and go, oh, are you all right? Or what's going on? Or, you know, you angry at me, or you're awkward, or what's going on? And you can engage with that and kind of generate some awareness, and also just get rid of the taboo on these things, and just air it out. And then you'll grow closer to people, and you'll be able to have, yeah, just I think more awareness for these things. And awareness is the root of all solutions, you know. You need to be aware of the problem properly before you can start to be aware of the potential solutions, and then before you can be aware of which solution seems the best to try out at this moment, and then aware of the steps to actually implement it, and then do it. And then maybe it didn't work, okay, try which one is, become aware of which is the next best thing to try, and then eventually become aware that you've solved it, you know. Anyway, so, but if you're presenting a facade, you're lying, you're obscuring reality, whether that's omitting truth, you're not saying important things that clearly people are assuming, or they think, you know, you should tell them, you know. It's pretty a fine line between omitting from saying things and lying. In many cases, it's the same thing. If it's intentional, then it's lying, usually. But yeah, whether you're lying to, you know, deceive people intentionally and just exploit them, or whether you're kind of just presenting a facade and kind of in a more gentle version, but still ultimately you're trying to control their perceptions, trying to please your parents or whatever it is, you know. And often these things are quite instinctual and they just pop up before we're even aware what's going on. You are building neural pathways. You know, it's like the forest starts, you know, someone's cut a path, and then if no one comes down that path for a year, they come back down the path. It's pretty overgrown, and, you know, they need to kind of recut it. It won't be like wild forest, you know, it'll be easier to cut than it was the first time it was cleared. But, you know, it'll be overgrown. You need to go through and kind of cut the way through again. And so with the mind, it's a bit like that, where these pathways, neural pathways we're on, the pathways of joy, the pathways of sorrow, or the pathways of honesty, the pathways of deception. We need to be running through over them, you know, deepening that groove, or they start to kind of atrophy. And neuroplasticity, you know, we kind of, you know, these currents or patterns pull us in a different direction. So if you're acting out lies, then that you will become a lie, you know, like that's going to become strengthened, so that even, you know, because you might think, oh, I'm only practicing that part of my brain which interacts with others. It's not the same, the part of my brain which interacts with myself. There's a different part. And yeah, fair enough, you know, that's true to some extent, but it is, you know, even if, you know, it is still like you're using your brain, and it's still, you're interacting with someone, you're someone. So I don't know, I think intuitively it makes sense to me that you will be, that dishonesty and these masks you're wearing, it's going to be harder for you to differentiate between that and the truth, even on your own, the more you practice these things. A bit similar would be like if someone might think that kind of being, by, you know, being poisonous to others and being like, oh, idiots, and kind of being really aggressive to others, and disdainful of others, that doesn't affect you karmically. I don't believe in karma. It's like, well, I mean, who knows what's going on in like the astral realm or something, you know, and like dynamics of the hidden, humming, shining, spiritual, energetic gears of existence, and what's, you know, how the mechanisms that we can't see, given that we can only perceive a tiny bandwidth of the electromagnetic spectrum, and that's only a small part of all the energy that physicists believe exists or whatever, and who knows what's beyond their imaginations anyway. But apart from all that madness, just, if you're being aggressive to others, sure, that's different to how you interact with yourself. But even people who do that, the fact is they are empowering aggression per se within their psyche. And so anytime there's some sort of self-aggression where they get annoyed at themselves, it's going to be a little easier for their mind to get pretty turbo because they've been practicing aggression. If they were practicing kind of more relaxed kindness to others, then anytime the instinct to be kind and relaxed with themselves comes up, it's going to be a bit easier. There's already that momentum. And so you might think, there's these levels. It's nested within, these nested hierarchies of, yeah, it's aggression, but that's for someone else, but it's within aggression in general. And that's within, say, the brain, like social dynamics relating to others, or, there's these layers or levels. And then in general, like you're feeding your ego even at one level below that, So that these would be an example just where if you're feeling aggression towards others, that's actually your mind. You're getting into an us against them mentality, and that's also not just a problem for the people who are at you're unleashing your wrath upon, but also for yourself, because at the end of the day, if you want to be awake, if you want to be free, you need to kind of master your mind, and you're kind of empowering your mind into building up into this monster. So what you do to others, you're actually doing to yourself. Anyway, honestly, I think I need water. That's good. So, all right. So that's kind of more or less why I think honesty is important. Just for we live in a society. If you think about it, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The society would crumble if everyone was lying. So why should you lie? Don't you want, if you want society to be there so you can have all these wonderful opportunities and not be dealing with freaking wolves and stuff, naked and hungry in the cold. So, okay, even from a pure selfishness, lower consciousness standpoint, you should be supporting this system, keeping it strong. So you shouldn't be lying. And, you could say a little bit of lying won't hurt. Yeah, but, a little goes a long way. And, way leads to way. And, slippery slopes and all that. You can get out of control. And if everyone's doing it, then you can build up, like just the advertising industry. Like how that was Freud's nephew, I think, was like a pioneer of public relations stuff. And how it was all really using, cutting edge psychological science to kind of manipulate people, bringing out their worst instincts, in order to make money for some, elite few who had more resources and, the willingness and ability to kind of organize in that way at that time. And God knows what that's done to like the collective consciousness. And I think it's really dumbed down society a lot. However, I think that's also gonna, probably end up being, a great blessing in that, the stronger the curse, the stronger the blessing once it's kind of redeemed, or meaning we become aware of it, extract ourselves from that quagmire of mind. And then, it's like people who have suffered really deeply. Once, if they can get through it, they tend to be catapulted into a greater happiness than people who have had a simple, not too difficult, not too interesting life. Like great artists often have suffered a lot. So I think, sure, it will be great in the end anyway. But even now it's all good ultimately. But yeah. So so yeah, society. If we're all full of lying to each other, it doesn't really work, right? So it makes sense to, be the change you want to see in the world. It's a courageous step. It's a responsible step to be the adult, one of the adults in the room who's supporting the system, which creates all this amazing stuff. And you can walk around the streets, you can be going through your life, dealing with people, and have a little twinkle in your eye because you understand that a lot of people might be lying and getting cheap thrills for their lower self. But you are doing your very best to not lie, to tell the truth. And even if, like I lie, sometimes, but I try not to, unless it's some situations where it's the right idea to lie, but which we'll talk about in a minute. But in general, I catch myself. I try to, whether it's a tiny thing like or like a bigger thing, I really try to be self-aware and to not do it. But even so, it's like a transition. It's like so that's fine. As long as you're on the road and you're doing your best to. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. It's very satisfying to be aware. Like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing here and doing what encourages social flourishing of the people. So get on it. It's good stuff. And the benefits of lying, these tiny little things. Oh, people think I'm cool. Who gives a fuck what people think? It doesn't matter. And what do you think? You're lying. That's not so good. All right. Be someone who you be, if you want to be somewhat a respected person, be someone that you respect, otherwise it's just shameful, honestly, isn't it? So, and then, also we mentioned just how honesty is just easier. Like, you might think, I'm really ambitious, I can get ahead through, climb the social hierarchy through lying. Yeah, to some extent that'll help. But I mean, at the end of the day, you'll be losing your soul for just to, get ahead in the world. It's not going to satisfy you. You're going to, if you die contented, it's going to happen because you abandoned that plan sooner or later. You can learn lessons through that, but ultimately you're going to come to a point of going, oh, like all the real juice in this life is from the truth and sharing with others and kind of sharing space with other beings, and sharing the joy amplifies the joy. So, but even, so yeah, I think it's a losing game, lying, but have at it if you need it in order to wake up. I think that seems like the system is built so that suffering, as I said in the episode on suffering's your friend, that, if we're not aware, if we can't understand why the aligned, balanced way is good, then we will surely, go miss the mark, and go out of balance. But thankfully, it's going to make us suffer, and the universe is going to kick us in the teeth, and we go, where did that kick come from? We're going to retrace, the stream of causality and find exactly where we were out of balance, and we learn. So, but yeah, so and then I mentioned here how if you're living through deception, if you're not being honest, you can start fooling yourself. And I think the people we lie to most are probably ourselves. No, I'm not the whole universe. I'm this guy here. Like. Yeah, no, I do love, this football team, which my whole family loves, and they would all abandon me if I said I loved the other football team, or whatever it is. Oh yeah, I mean, the war in Ukraine totally makes sense. Everything's totally fine. Putin's a bad guy. The West is good. It's cut and dry. It's just like Iraq. Oh wait, Iraq was a bit complicated. Let's not think about Iraq. What's on TV? There's all sorts of small ways where we will lie to ourselves, I think, especially about just, our honest feelings about what's real and what's right, So, and we're, in many situations, it's complicated and you might not know exactly what's going on. And some people don't even like that and don't want to have to deal with the ambiguity and uncertainty. So they'll just go for a simple solution, and lie to themselves and say, yeah, that's it, definitely. I think it's really good, and it's actually much easier than you might think, just to live with ambiguity and uncertainty and go, yeah, I don't know what's going on in Ukraine exactly. There's a lot of weird things on both sides. All right, who knows? I don't need to know. Like, I have as clear an idea as I can, and hope to clarify that over time, So yeah, trying to live by truth, because if you lie repeatedly, then you become a liar, and you can't even, you're like hypnotized, you're in a trance, and you the you who you were trying to, get all these benefits for through lying, you don't even know who that is. It's not even you, it's this creature you've created. So then I mentioned, and I think, say, if your friends will think you're crazy for having certain opinions, I think, I don't know, I think that's no real friend if they can't accept you for who you are. I have friends who believe, things that I think are like, yeah, actually, I think that's kind of like just wrong. But if I was to then throw away your friendship, what kind of friend would I be? You know? So I think we can understand, especially when you understand that there's a body, there's a mind, and then there's the soul. And who you're friends with is the soul. Like it's, the mind is like their secretary kind of thing. It's, who knows? It's all very mystical and strange the way it works. I don't know exactly, but I know that friend can sit down and start focusing on their breathing and meditate, and then their mind slows down. And if they really focus, it'll just disappear for a while. There'll be no thoughts, and yet they are there. So I know that, my friend didn't just die. No, they're just meditating, right? The soul's still there, right? The awareness, the presence, Um, so, if your friends can't accept you for who you are, then I think, okay, maybe you find some other friends. And I think, it's like that thing, like, it's better to be hated for who you are than loved for who you're not. And I think just both because you can be yourself, and we're here to be ourselves, both, and that also uplifts the world, but also it uplifts yourself. So, you're part of the world anyway. But so just for that enough, that's enough reason to for it to be better to be hated for who you are than loved for who you're not, because we're not here to live a lie. But then also, actually, you're going to end up finding a lot of friends. That's the way to find great friends, is be who you are. Maybe 100 people, pass over your opportunities for friendship with you because they're not interested. Like, oh, okay, this person's nuts. But then the one person, the 101st person who's like, whoa, this guy's amazing, or this gal's amazing. They're going to be your best friend because you've been so open. When you find someone who resonates with you, it's going to be a very deep connection. And then you two can gravitate and find a third person easier probably than finding the first person. And you can start building a group, and even if it was just, one friend, I'd rather have one really good friend who really could see the real me and I can see the real them, than to have like 100 people who we're, playing games. We're all playing roles to try to impress each other, and there's none of us even here. It's just a bunch of roles trying to impress other roles. It's stupid, right? So be who you are, and and a lot of the people who you might think would, reject your friendship and, isolate you, or what's the term? Ostracize you or whatever. I think a lot of them would actually be like, you might, be surprised, like, oh, well, man, they might actually really like it. And maybe they were holding that thing in reserve too, because they thought they were going to get rejected. So you can do others a solid and help them be their best self, bring out their true selves. Or even if they do reject you, at least you're bring that into awareness and make them, maybe they'll become aware. I'm kind of a bit of a dick, aren't I? I just kind of rejected my friend there. And that helps them grow. So even if you don't see them again, that's a nice parting gift of friendship, is just to be yourself. And if they push you away, then that's going to be part of them. And, you're helping them grow more aware. And some of them may even come back and go, hey, I was a bit out of line. Sorry about that. And think about it. If everyone is kind of attaching to what the others think, if you're not standing on your own ground, if your ground is other people and you're trying to find a steady foothold in them and their opinion of you and their opinion of what's right, think about that. Try and generalize that, like Kant would say, What if everyone's doing that? Everyone's seeking each other for ground. That's just like floating in the air, like Neo and that agent, just, holding hands, trying to shoot each other, spinning in a circle forever doesn't make sense. You know, someone, you need to be on the ground. You're, you know, if you're trying to seek someone else as your ground, what are they doing? You subconsciously, you're expecting them to have their feet on the ground, but why would they have a better idea of what's the right, you know, grounding and foundation and viewpoints or whatever to have and way to be? I think you need to trust yourself. And why should they? Who wants a friend who's, you know, doesn't believe in themselves? You know, I mean, I guess sometimes there's a place for that and helping people who are in a dark place, but I think we should try to be, you know, self-sufficient and be on standing on your own feet. Um, and that's a common, you know, very common form of lying, I think, is not standing on our own feet, but trying to please others and, you know, not just giving people the opportunity to reject us or to accept us or somewhere in between, or to embrace and celebrate us or whatever, to insult us and whatever, you know. All of that's a gift of your truth, the embodied truth of being who you are. And it brings out the best in everyone, ultimately, even if it brings out the worst temporarily. So, yeah. Now, and then and the same with family and colleagues and everything. I think telling the truth is very important. There is sometimes where telling the truth, like maybe like talking about COVID, and I was like, oh, everyone's losing their freaking minds. What's got this? You know, look at the COVID episode. If you don't know what I mean, I think you probably do know what I mean though. But just like, you know, collective psychosis kind of stuff, like what was going on and what's probably going to go on again. You know, at some point in this decade, there's like a very clear totalitarian movement among certain elements of authority, and a lot of people, you know, fell into lockstep with that, you know, and you know, it's kind of like a sort of trance thing. It's a bit, you don't really notice it when you're in it until it's pointed out, and even then, a lot of people don't want to admit that. Oh yeah, you're right. This is kind of some weird hive mind black magic stuff. But I didn't, you know, really, I was very hesitant to talk to my colleagues about it because I was like, well, look, I need bread and butter. I have my job. I don't want to look crazy. And then, oh, sorry, you know, we just don't have that many hours for you. They've gone to the other people. You know, there's a real danger of that, you know, you'll lose your job or just suffer some, you know, pressures put upon you. But I think in hindsight, I should have just been much more honest. And if they can't accept me for that, and you know, and then we just, you know, we don't need to talk about it. But like, they might just not bring it up with me anymore, or whatever that topic. But at least they know. Oh yeah, okay. There's another element here. Someone who seems to be not totally crazy, at least fairly rational. This guy, you know, Jamie doesn't seem too nuts. I hope they would think. Oh, he's got this point of view. Interesting. They might think more about it. And that's generating honesty collectively and truth and awareness collectively. So I think it's important for people to be willing to take some chances like that and risk some of our skin. And that is how I plan to be living going forward, just to tell the truth. And you're not needing to rub it in people's faces and always talk about things. There's definitely an importance in grace and being able to, people can say stuff and you're like, oh yeah, and you don't need to give your opinion. But then that must be balanced because there is a lot of problems in the world which are crying out for conversation. And conversation will lead to generating awareness, which leads to solving the problems. And so actually there is an imperative to talk and give opinions on certain of these issues, but also, you know, to keep yourself out of it. It's the message, not the messenger. And to try to, you know, yeah, have poise and dignity and, you know, civility. When you're talking about these things, and not to be a bummer and, you know, in every conversation. But so that's one thing. And then I think especially people in positions of power, like, you know, you're working in a university or you're a high level doctor or you're a politician or you're a bureaucrat or whatever. I think there's an enormous amount of pressure to lie about certain things or to pretend you don't see certain things, to omit to tell the truth. And I think there's a lot of 100%. There's a lot of deaths, injuries, you know, just mental health problems, wasted opportunities, broken relationships, broken dreams, um, a whole bunch of suffering and heartache um, that has, in the last few years, resulted from people in positions of authority not being honest to the public at large, and not being honest to themselves, most of all. Um, and I think that's going to continue, and this is something we need to learn. And if these people can't be honest, then we need people who can be honest to kind of rise up and take authority. Because if you're not honest, then you have no authority. You have false authority, you know. So that's the thing. I think this is something that people are becoming more aware of. Like, a lot of many authority figures have lied, and just like a kind of hollowing out, dying plant, it looks like the structure is still there, but then you tap it and all the leaves fall off, you know, and it just dissolves into dust. I think like truth is the nectar of authority, as they say in Mozambique, you know. It's the national saying of Mozambique. Truth is the nectar of authority, and vice versa, maybe. Um, so, but yeah, there are some times when it's right to lie and even necessary, I think. Like if the Nazis are at your door saying, "Have you seen any Jews?" and you have, then the correct thing, if you're brave enough, well, I think just the right thing to do is to lie and say, "No, I haven't," or "Yeah, I think they might have gone that way," or point in the wrong direction. But or just more likely say, "No, I haven't, sir," you know. Um, there, you know, so protecting, or um, you know, there's a child who needs to sleep and be calm, and if they get, you know, scared, they're going to start crying, and there's like bad guys combing the neighborhood because you're some sort of dissident and you don't believe, you know, in extreme form of their religion or whatever it is, you know, then the correct answer would be like, no, no, it's just like a little, you know, sleepover party in the cupboard. Just a little game we're playing. Go back to sleep. That's not true, but the truth there would be endangering their life. And by keeping the child alive, I mean, it's a duty of love. It kind of, I guess, goes beyond logical reasons for how we could explain it or justify it. But you get the point, right? There's times when we would all agree, even just on an intuitive level, like, yeah, it's right to lie there. But then it's very slippery because then maybe some politicians go, well, I need to lie in order to get into power or to hold on to power because then I can use it for good. But then, and I might need to lie about that as well to keep into power. And then maybe over time, you know, 10 years down the road, they're like, oh, who am I again? I'm just a bundle of lies, you know? And, you know, but then the problem is if you're trying to get into some of these games like that, high level medicine, high level science, high level politics, a lot of these institutions are, it's seemingly captive to, you know, kind of billionaire money. Not every billionaire, you know, but like there's some very powerful people who seemingly, shock and awe, surprise, surprise, would like more power and money. And a great way to do that is to control institutions, including institutions like the media that control the flow of information, given that consciousness is the seed of all solutions, and trying to manipulate public perception, but also, you know, many, you know, other, you know, institutions of authority. So there are defense mechanisms built into these by this point where if you want to get ahead in politics, even apart from this kind of bigger picture stuff of like the WEF or whatever is going on, or, you know, reserve banks who seemingly control all the monetary system, and, you know, like, you know, the CIA being like totally unaccountable in America and all, you know, torturing people, and, you know, Obama says he's going to shut down Guantanamo Bay, and he gets into office and he has complete power for what was it, a year, 2 years? Never shut before the Republicans got control of, you know, part of the legislature again, etc. But like he didn't shut it down, you know. So either there's some sort of, with a lot, with that particular example, either there's something he feels he can't be honest about, like, oh, there's, you know, these aggressive aliens who we're fighting and we don't want to freak out the population. then maybe it's justified to say keep everyone calm. But I would say probably just tell the truth, and that's probably going to be the best solution. But maybe there's some sort of reason, like we need this space where we torture people, but probably not. I guess especially since it violates the Constitution. But so you know, it seems oh, actually he didn't have as much power as he thought he was going to, or maybe he never even intended to do it. Maybe he was lying on the campaign trail or whatever. But so anyway, there are. It definitely seems that a lot of people who go into politics, in particular, but many probably academia as well, they understand the game. At least intuitively, like subconsciously, but often I think consciously, and understand that I want to make progress. I want to contribute to my own life. I want to build my dreams. But also collectively, I want to kind of be part of something historical, or historic. And so if I go all out and say I'm going to be completely honest about everything, I'm not going to be able to get ahead in this system because there's vested interests. I need to play the game a bit. So, okay, 10% of my opinions and 10% of the actions I would like to take based on those opinions, I'm just going to sacrifice them so that the other 90% can be achieved or can be worked on, and then maybe some fraction of that will end up being achieved. So I think that's very common, but then over time in these institutions, you become part of that, and I think it's very hard to keep a track of where do you begin and the lies end, or where do you end and the lies begin. So there's that. But yes, but there are, I think definitely countries, I think need a certain amount of secrecy, say the military having certain intelligence agencies, etc., for self-defense. But I think, like, you look at, say, the intelligence agencies in like the Western world, especially America. It's like it's so dishonest, like it's so far beyond. Unless there's some insane threat that we're not being told about, in which case I think you should just tell us anyway. Um, and legally we didn't give you the authority to make that decision over us. You're not our daddy. Um, but unless there is some sort of huge unseen threat which they're not telling us about, it's such a disproportionate power grab, like disproportionate amount of power which has been taken by the spy agencies and military industrial complex in America, etc., with the war on terror and all that kind of stuff. And the it's like, well, there's a need for secrets. Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, they broke the rules. It's like, no, you broke the rules. They're the heroes who are telling the truth. Like they should rightly be honored, and they're being especially Assange and like Chelsea Manning, formerly Bradley Manning, the things that have been done to them is absolutely shocking and barbaric, and they will not be seen well in the eyes of history. So, and if you're not aware of their stories, I highly recommend you become aware, because the real heroes who are like fighting for your rights and to keep the government accountable to the people, so that it's serving the people and it's not trying to make the people serve it. And at this point, it's like governments largely are trying to get people. In many parts of the world, it's always been like that. The governments are making the people their slaves and making the people serve them. But at least in the West, the idea was, and the reality was, to a large extent, for a while, that the government was serving the people. At least parts of the world, parts of the Western world, maybe some other parts of the world too. We had, limited government and a free and open pluralistic society, which I think we it would be great to bring back and revive. Now, honestly, that water was delicious. Doesn't even have a flavor, does it? But oh, it's delicious. So that was okay. The dynamics of when it's right to lie, or you're preparing a surprise for someone, maybe a small lie of like, oh no, I wasn't buying you a gift, and then tomorrow, happy birthday. That's all good, obviously. Um, but kids maybe can't understand that yet. So you might say, lying's bad. And then if there's an instance where, I guess maybe, if they're ready, yeah, you could tell them, unless, there might be some exceptions, but case by case. But as, for adults, like, we should be aware that I think lying, it's about your intention, and ultimately, your heart should be smarter than your head. And your heart will know when it's the right thing to do. Is it based upon love and unity and togetherness and trying to live your life, enjoy your dreams, while being able to vicariously enjoy the idea of everyone else living their dreams? That should excite you. Excites me. It's cool. Great. It's like, wow, man, we're in this huge garden of flourishing dreams. This is amazing. I want everyone to be happy, And part of that is that awareness of who we are, that connection, understanding that we're all, the continents connect beneath the seas, as someone said, something like that, that we're all, we're not these separate floating entities. We're all branches on the same tree, right? So, which again, when you're aware of that, it's much clearer, the rationale for telling the truth and being honest. So now, okay, for being truthful with people when we're communicating. I mean, I mentioned like the government or like politicians or people in academia who, well, I think Graham Hancock's totally right, but I'd lose my job if I admitted that. Look what they're trying to like, terrify Netflix into dropping his show, Ancient Apocalypse, incredible show. Highly recommend you watch it. He summarizes a lot of the stuff that's in his books about the lost civilization hypothesis, which has a lot of evidence behind it, and I would predict is going to be in the official history books within the next few decades. This is just the sum of scientific evidence is on this, supports this, that we forgot about a whole episode of civilization in some sort of advanced civilization of the Ice Age, long before Egypt or Sumeria or anything like that, and that they were destroyed, comet, floods, global destruction, and 12,800 years ago, 11,600 years ago, the Younger Dryas period, and then rebooted civilization through refugees settling in amongst hunter-gatherers all around the world, rebooting, teaching them in exchange for refuge, and passing on that technology. Side note, of course, but I got to be honest, I think it's important. Do you want to hear a song about pears? Oh, wait, I already sang that to you, didn't I? Okay. So finally getting to the question of, say, with me, like, how honest, something I think about, because I'm into all these sort of crazy fringe ideas, They're not fringe for me. Oh, I have fringe ideas where it's on the fringe of what I'm aware of within my orbit, but then a lot of the things where, for me, I'm like, oh yeah, definitely that's the case, or yeah, that's really likely, or yeah, it's possible, or whatever. A lot of that stuff, in general, people would think is fringe. I think I'm aware of this. People like, might think I believe in some odd ideas, but honestly, I think I consider a lot of things, but I just have various piles: the definitely not pile, the definitely yes pile, the probably not pile, probably yes pile, the possibly not pile, possibly yes pile. And I just I don't need to know exactly where something is, but things might shift from pile to pile over time. But and in any right here, right now, need to make a decision. I kind of have my view of where something is, but I allow information to flow, and I allow myself to learn and not be attached to one way of seeing things. There's a basic level of structure you need of your beliefs and what's going on. You have to assume certain things, are true. But you can kind of keep it as like, yeah, probably it's good. Yeah, the world is probably, whatever, I don't know. Let's say, I think we probably went to the moon, or I might say yeah, I mean, I don't have much evidence on that. That would be an extreme idea, right? But here's the thing: if I say that, now this is a nice segue. I could say, oh, strong probability we went to the moon. But I mean, I don't know. I think we went to the moon, but I mean, I haven't really looked into it properly. And some people say, oh, no, we didn't. It was just, there's blah, blah, blah. Some, Soviet Union trying to make them look bad. It was all like a warfare. It was very dedicated. Why would they do that? They're trying to make the Soviet Union look bad and, win over these third world countries to join their alliances, Um, and so, but even just saying like that, like, well, I think probably we went there, but I mean, I'm not certain. Um, a lot of, I think there's a lot of people who, from my point of view, I'll tell you how I see it. I believe a sign of intellectual maturity and spiritual maturity is that you can hear people express opinions which you don't agree with, and yet you won't close yourself off to information from them. You will, even people who I go, oh my God, you're totally nuts, or I might think, wow, you're really like, you've really bought into, you've been drinking the Kool-Aid pretty heavy, on an empty stomach, and you're just totally like brainwashed. I will still listen to these people because I think they might say one thing in a 2 hours of talking. They might say one comment which is useful for me to grow as a person, whether it's passing me information or whether it's just something they do where I go, oh, that was interesting. The dynamics of where their personality flowed in that moment. Huh. And I might be able to apply it to myself to become a wiser person myself. So I'm always treating people as if they have something they might be able to tell me. And I think, people who can't do that, but unfortunately, I think it's quite common that people will, if you say one thing, especially one fairly powerful, significant thing that they think is ridiculous, even if you've just said 9 really out there, surprising things that they're like, whoa, yeah, oh my God, you're right. You say one out there, surprising thing which they think is ridiculous, and they'll close off from you, and they might even just go and erase the memory of the 9 things they agreed about. Go, oh, no, I can't trust that because he also said he believes, people didn't go to the moon. It's like, well, actually, he didn't. He said he's not certain. He thinks probably they did. But like, but also, I say that, but certain people, depends on how you see things. Like I see it as like there's these different piles or whatever in my mind, or other people might be like, what are you talking about? No, it's just yes or no, So there's different styles of how to analyze things and what we're comfortable with, how we are comfortable with interfacing with reality and our beliefs, how many categories you want to keep in your head of probability and likelihood. But I think there's this dilemma of we can be completely honest, and then I think this is really what's needed for the world to address some of these very serious problems which are have been coming to us and will be continuing to come to us until we really awaken en masse. Oh, watch that darkness settle. Oh, the sun's gone down here. And so there's a great need for us to be honest, especially public intellectuals need to be much more honest. I feel like my intuition is there's a huge number of people in positions of authority and public personality, so to speak, who either think it's possible or probable or certain that there is some coup d'etat going on planetarily on planet Earth. For this is one thing, that the whole WEF madness and Great Reset and all that stuff. That like there is a real, genuine, concerted effort at a global consolidation of power via climate change agenda and COVID and various other things into basically control, creating a grid of control instead of allowing citizens to be free and have exercise their adult sovereignty. I think there's a large number of people who are aware that this is possible or probable or certain or whatever, who aren't saying that out loud because they don't want to look crazy. They don't want to have their audience close off to their ideas. So they make that sacrifice, kind of similar to the politician who's trying to get into the political party who says, 10% of my beliefs I'm just not going to talk about. I'm not even going to act upon them. And you might even forget you ever believed them in time. So I think there's a lot of, so I would call it, I mean, I don't know if this is ever going to get to a wide enough audience where anyone in such a position is going to hear, but I would hope so. And so I would say anyone who is listening, uh, anyone, all of us are in a position of power, whether it's like it's seemingly or not. And so we all need to be I think we need to be much more honest about what we really think's going on. And this way we can start sorting things through. Because I think there's an information flow problem where a lot of people who aren't really interested in this sort of thing, or aren't able, for whatever reason, to kind of sort through the different facts and opinions, etc., they go, well, it doesn't seem like too many people think, there's some sort of huge global coup d'etat coming to take away our rights. Everything seems well, it's probably fine. Meanwhile, it could be, I suspect the majority of the quote unquote intelligentsia of the planet are like, ooh, powerful dark force of tyranny sliding in. How do we deal with this? I want to keep my job. I've got my family. I've got a mortgage. I've got this book I'm trying to publish, but I don't want to lose my publishing deal. And there's all this question of how much are we willing to sacrifice. I don't have a great deal to sacrifice, really. So, I mean, it's not such a big deal for me to just say what I think. But it is something, I do like, maybe people think I'm crazy, or maybe this will affect some future job, offer or book deal, or I don't know what I'm going to be doing. But I've decided that sounds fun. Sounds like a mighty adventure to just, I'm just going to be myself, just say what I think. And it's also easier. I can just be more relaxed and chill and not need to worry and not have that shame and that self-awareness of like, oh, you're not letting your full self show. That messes with you under the surface, I think. And it's going to poison all your other projects. You're trying to do something. How do you know, like, oh, I almost got that, interview, or I almost did that thing on time. So close. How do you know the difference that it would have taken for you to have a glorious triumph there? How do you know that gap wouldn't have been filled and that dream wouldn't have manifested if you had been more honest about who you are through time? And so you had that greater, the energy is just flowing through you more freely. How do we know that it's not self-constriction that's kind of sabotaging ourselves because we're trying to empower ourselves by manipulating how others see us, when in fact, perhaps the ultimate power is in just letting go of all manipulation and just saying, I am as I am. This is the truth. Hallelujah, and encouraging all beings to do the same. And with some of caveats of oh, there's Nazis at the door. Okay, don't tell them there's Jews in the attic or whatever. Of course, or kids are scared. You can say something to keep them calm if that's necessary or whatever. Or even things like, yeah, you look great in that shirt, even if you think it looks terrible. But your friend's got a job interview, so well, there's no time to iron the shirt. Just say it looks great. Give them a boost. Stuff like that. There's a balance, but overwhelmingly it must be to tell the truth, I think. Oh, it's pouring down rain. Delicious. And this rain's making me thirsty. Oh my God. So, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. I can see definitely, I can see the pull, the draw of the view that, well, I think Russell Brand, for example, probably does this. I think Joe Rogan is doing this a lot. I think a lot of people do it where they would say, okay, I'm going to say this much. And it's like, it's what I think, but it's not all that I think. I'm excluding some very important details from the picture. But I feel if I put all of it out there, it's going to cause too much backlash, where either in the case of Joe Rogan, I mean, I don't know. I have great respect for Joe, but also, I think he's got a lot of responsibility. And as much as people say he's doing a great job, I feel either he's kind of recklessly unaware of certain pretty clear things, or he's keeping recklessly silent about some things, or he's trying to say, well, I got a great thing going, I got this life for my family, and it's all really fun, and he loves fun. That's something I really appreciate about him. Guerrilla Buddhism, as he'd call it, right? Buddhism. But there's a point, there's a limit to that where it's like, oh, sure does look like people are kind of like totalitarianism's on the rise. Am I going to have this stuff if this thing, takes off? And that self-honesty of, but then again, maybe it's just his point of view. Maybe he doesn't see it the same way, and that's fine. But I think there's a lot of people who kind of feel like certain of these people in positions of power aren't talking about what they know to be true because they don't want to have this backlash, whether it's, oh, I lose my deal with Spotify, and millions of dollars, whatever, or, oh, people call me crazy, or in the case of, Russell Brand, I don't know, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it's even personal safety. Some of these people don't like the idea of investigating some of these things because then maybe they're going to get threats, and no judgment, I don't know. I think it's a very difficult situation to be in. But and I have great respect for both of those people, and great podcast. Highly recommend checking them out. Russell Brand's on YouTube and Rumble. Rogan is now on Spotify, although for a very long time he was on his own website, which I preferred. It's freer, no censorship. But yeah, nonetheless, there's a balance to these things, and I think I can see that point of view for, oh, my audience might be limited, people might shut off, I'm just gonna, and I think there's a lot of subconscious, kind of gaslighting and manipulation of making people feel crazy or like a conspiracy theorist. Like there'd be so many, tell me if I'm wrong, you can just talk to your phone or computer or whatever. But it seems to me like there'd be so many things where 10 years ago or 20 years ago, if you said, oh, some people say blah, 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 blah. What do you think? That could be possible, right? Some kind of far out thing. I think there'd be a lot of people who'd go, oh yeah, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's possible. Whereas, yeah, oh yeah, I guess it's possible, the world's being controlled by, a certain subsection of the billionaire class, a more criminally minded subsection of the billionaire class. But then these days, I think a huge number of people, they've got this knee-jerk reaction built in now, if you ask them about that, they'll be like, oh no, what are you, a conspiracy theorist? No, I'm not one of those people who we all criticize and, who get, bad-mouthed in the media and ostracized and taken off of social media. And, no, I think that's actually a problem. I think that's making everything unstable. That's why there's this background feeling of scariness feeling up in the air. It's because of these crazy people. That's right. I think there's all this black magic being woven around the idea of free thinking and free speech. And, again, I would not be shocked to learn if something I've said in this podcast is not true. If there's something, but it's not, I promise you it's not a lie though. I'm telling you, I'm being honest. But it's possible I'm in error about certain things, or even if it's not black and white, like got a fact wrong, it could be like there's a perspective I've put out there which might not be too healthy. It might be like, oh, you should have balanced that by mentioning this as well, or that you should have added that word because that sentence is too strong the way you put it, or whatever. I would not be shocked to look back in 2 decades and go, oh yeah, this wasn't a perfect expression, even if it was an honest one. So that's fine, but we can all work in groups to share with the God-given gift of, speech and awareness to, like the Mesopotamian hero god, what's his name? Marduk, with the magic eyes around his head. No, he speaks magic words and he's got eyes all around his head. It's like the powers of awareness and articulation and logos, speech, as Jordan Peterson has put it. Through these abilities, these feedback loops of awareness and articulation. Even with one person, it's very powerful if you're being honest with yourself, but even more powerful in groups where we all have the freedom as autonomous members to share and be honest about what we agree with and what we don't agree with. And so, yeah, if there's something you don't agree with or you do agree with, I'd love for you to let me know. I'm always open to that. That would be cool. And if there's things you want me to talk about, please ask me. If it's quasi-reasonable, I'll definitely, do an episode on it. Or, if it's interesting and, but yeah, I do think some of the things I've said, I could feel like, people are going to, subsection of the more criminally minded subsection of the billionaire class, people might think I'm crazy. Like, well, but do I think that's crazy? No, actually, there's a lot of evidence, Bill Gates buying up farmland everywhere, or the wealth transfer through the lockdowns, like, made no sense. It's clearly going to damage the economy, and yet they did it, and boom, there's an enormous transfer from the middle class up to the billionaire class. Amazon grows, all these tech companies grow, pharmaceutical companies grow, all this, crazy stuff going on. Well, yeah, I think that's what, I don't know, but I think that's what's going on. There's not all the billionaires, obviously, like in life, it's never clear cut like that, but it's like a subsection, who seem to be basically, committing mass crime. I think that's probably what's going on. So why shouldn't I say that if that's what I think? And by saying that, a few things happen. One, I overcome some sort of blockage, and I can kind of feel it. Like, I'm pretty honest in general, but like, to make this podcast make me kind of be more crystal clear, aware of it. Like, right, yeah, it's very, things just flow through. Who knows what will come to you when you're less inhibited because you're just not lying to yourself or hiding things from yourself or others. But then also, inspiring others to, I hope I can inspire others to, even if it's a small thing, like just, you stop lying to your dog. You're like, hey, Lassie, I'm really into jazz. And then actually you hate jazz, but you just lie to your dog all day, Could be something as simple as that, or as, telling people you love, your job, and you're like, actually, I don't like this job. Or, your family being like, yeah, I know, I see what you're saying. I think it makes sense what you're saying about that issue. And actually you think they're totally wrong, but you never tell them. Could be something like this. That's incredibly powerful, to be more honest. Or it could be something big, and talking to people say, I think we need to shut down, capitalism's the problem, and, fossil fuels. Well, actually, I think the whole, climate alarmism is the real problem, and a lot of it's not backed up by proper science, believe it or not, but politically motivated and funded science with an agenda. And actually, carbon dioxide's totally healthy for the planet. It's not a pollutant. It's an invisible gas which, trees use to grow green. The world's greening faster than ever because there's more CO2. Greenhouses use CO2 to, boost the speed, the strength, and the size of the growth. And capitalism is the engine for prosperity, and all the best evidence seems to show, like Bjorn Lomborg's work and all that, and just, history, if anyone reads a book, God help you if you read a book, that actually free markets, the rule of law, like relatively free markets, of course not slavery or selling, so there's some restrictions, but free markets, rule of law, property rights, that these things allow prosperity to grow, and upward social mobility. And then when people are no longer in dire poverty, by pulling people out of poverty, they start to, their problem-solving mechanisms of their mind, evolutionarily honed problem solvers that we are, start to go, all right, well, we got food, we got clothing, we got water, what's next? And start scanning around and noticing the environment more and more, and go, does that river need to be polluted? Oh, is that harming us? Oh, interesting. And it starts, and then that's all, everything's fine in the country, and then it starts going, well, we deal with other countries, and there's these threats from these countries near us are a bit unstable. And and maybe starts being regional and then global, concern for how to keep things on every level, ecological, political, technological, cultural, whatever, keeping things balanced and grounded and flourishing. Um, so how do we deal with the ecological crises? Not through top-down control and monopolization of power by some, egomaniacs in Switzerland or something, but by decentralization, the empowerment of the individual, property rights, free markets, the diminishment of the interference of the state in our lives, reduction of taxation, sound money. So removing the ability for governments to just print money out of thin air, which is a hidden tax on people's savings. So there's 3 types of taxes. There's taxes, and then there's borrowing, and then there's printing money, all of which are ultimately coming from the taxpayer to support these bureaucracies who are very inefficient and don't rarely produce anything. And so, there's some, obviously, again, there's balances and things. So some place for a state, I think, for now, limited safety net, okay, for now. But in general, it's way overbloated and way too interfering and everything. So moving away from these, dominating bureaucracies and their elitist commands, and just moving towards decentralization and freedom and a spirit of honesty and mutual respect, and saying, this is what I think, what do you think? Let's try to sort this out together. Apart from bringing a more peaceful planet, that will bring a more prosperous planet, which in turn will solve a lot of these climate problems. But of course, I think if we're being real, and if I'm being totally honest, I think a lot of the people pushing these agendas, they know that, but that's not what they want. They don't see the value in that, because I would say they're disconnected from their true self. They're in their heads, their egos. They don't even believe in the heart, and they're not aware that they are basically host to a parasitic organism, which they think is themselves, their ego. And so you have very, very intelligent people who are absolute fools, who are basically screwing themselves over and the whole planet, because they think they're getting a great deal, and they think they can use the rest of the planet as cattle, but they don't understand that they're kind of, asleep. And again, that would just be my point of view. But then maybe there's some other explanations. I'm sure there are other explanations, but at the same time, I also feel this is the clearest I can see it, and this is the clearest I can say it. And so to a bare minimum, if someone listens to this, that can only be good, surely. No? Now, a bit of light. Om, and the light is on again. The light of truth, the light of honesty. So, I hope you enjoyed. Best of luck being honest, and know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And may your pears be sweet as your own soul. All right. See you next time. Peace and love.